I'm Helen. I'm 76 years old. And today I did something no mother is ever expected to do. I gave everything I own to a woman who isn't even family. I had just returned home after spending 6 long silent weeks in the hospital. Not a single visit. Not a single call. When I stepped through the front door, I saw boxes packed, my china gone, and my daughter-in-law smirking. "We thought you weren't coming back." She said if I fought her, I'd be sent away. So I called the nurse who held my hand when no one else did. And what happened next shook the entire neighborhood. The day before the fall, I remember everything, not because it was special but because it was so ordinary. I woke up at 6:45 just like I always do. The morning light had slipped through the sheer curtains, soft and golden, brushing against the old floral wallpaper. I shuffled into the kitchen, my slippers scuffing against the linoleum that still held faint echoes of a younger, busier life. The kettle hissed gently, and the scent of Earl Grey filled the air, warm, familiar. I poured a cup and sat by the window, cradling it in both hands like I always used to. Outside, the roses were blooming. The ones Walter planted for me after our 40th anniversary. "Every rose in this garden is for every year I've loved you," he had said back then, a playful smile hiding behind that old fishing cap. That man could never grow tomatoes to save his life, but those roses, they thrived. Just like we had once. I murmured a small prayer under my breath, the same one I've said since Walter passed. Then I turned on the radio. The same channel. The same quiet voice reading the weather report. A cool front moving in from the west. Expect some drizzle later. Drizzle. I could feel it in my knees before they ever said it. After breakfast, half a slice of toast, 1 boiled egg. I went to dust the shelf in the study. That's when I noticed the drawer was locked. The same drawer that always held important documents. I frowned and tugged gently, then harder. No luck. That was strange. I meant to ask my son about it. But I hadn't seen him in days. Neither him nor her. They lived just across town. Just 30 minutes away, if that. And yet, weeks would go by in silence. I had texted him a few nights ago. "Made some chicken soup today. Thought of you." All I got back was, "Busy. Hope you're doing well." Not "love you, Mom." Not "be there soon." Just, "busy." The quietness had started to thicken around me, like a fog I couldn't shake off. I hadn't had a real conversation with anyone in days. I caught myself talking to Walter's photo sometimes. Just little things. "Did you see how they trimmed the hedges next door?" Or "Your daughter-in-law still can't make a decent pie." It's funny how silence grows loud when you live alone. And still, I held on to the rhythm of my days. The same routines that had once brought comfort now kept me upright. I still arranged the good china every Sunday, even though no one came. I still bought fresh cream for coffee even though I stopped drinking it. I still baked carrot cake once a month, hoping my grandson might visit like he used to. But the last time I saw him, he barely looked up from his phone. I remember telling him, "You used to sit on that counter and help me mix the batter with your tiny hands." He just shrugged. Cool. It hurt more than I let on. That afternoon I noticed something else. My spare keys, the ones I always kept on the kitchen hook, were gone. I checked the drawer, then my coat pocket, then the little bowl near the door. Nothing. I tried not to panic. Maybe I misplaced them. I'm older now. My memory isn't what it once was. That's what they always say, don't they? Still, it felt off. Just like the locked drawer. Just like the way my daughter-in-law's perfume had lingered in the living room last week, even though they hadn't told me they'd stopped by. I went out to tend the roses. The soil was dry. As I dug my fingers into the earth, I found one of the old copper tags Walter used to mark his favorites. It had faded, but I could still make out the scratchy letters. "Forever Helen." The metal was warm from the sun. I held it in my palm and suddenly felt very, very tired. Something wasn't right. Something was coming. But I didn't know what. That evening, I made myself a small bowl of soup and sat by the fireplace, even though it was still summer. I needed the warmth. My knees ached. My chest felt tight, not with illness but with a heaviness I couldn't explain. And that's when the phone rang. Not a call. A message notification. It was from my daughter-in-law. "FYI, we'll be rearranging the guest room this weekend. Need space. Let us know if anything in there is important." That wasn't a guest room. That was my room. My sanctuary. The room where I kept my old recipe books. The lace dress I wore to my son's wedding. Walter's letters from Vietnam. I stared at the screen. My soup went cold. No greeting. No check-in. Just a command masked as courtesy. And it hit me like a slow chill. They weren't asking. They were moving in. Or maybe they already had. That's when I noticed the house keys weren't where I'd left them, and a new toothbrush had appeared in my bathroom. The next morning, I woke to a sound that didn't belong. Laughter. Loud. Dismissive. I sat up in bed slowly, my joints protesting, the familiar creak of my old mattress beneath me. The window was cracked open slightly, letting in the scent of damp grass and the faint hum of someone using the hose out back. I pulled on my robe, the one Walter bought me at Christmas 15 years ago, soft with age and worn at the sleeves, and shuffled toward the kitchen. That's when I saw them. My daughter-in-law, Amanda, perched on my dining room chair like it was hers. Legs crossed, sipping coffee from one of my antique teacups. The ones I only brought out for company. My son Matthew stood by the counter, flipping through a stack of papers I didn't recognize. I blinked, still groggy. They didn't flinch. "Oh, good morning," Amanda said, not looking up. Her voice had that sugar-glazed tone she always used when she was lying. "We let ourselves in. You were out cold. I don't remember giving you a key." She smirked, then sipped again. "Matt had a copy. For emergencies." Her words floated in the air like a challenge. I opened my mouth, then closed it. The kitchen smelled different. Not like breakfast or coffee. It smelled sterile, like lavender-scented wipes and whatever chemicals they used to clean granite counters. And the counter, mine, had been cleared of the old ceramic sugar bowl I kept since the 70s. Instead, there was some modern glass container with chrome edges and nothing inside. I turned to Matt. "What are those papers?" He paused. "Just bills, Mom. You know, keeping things organized while you were gone." Amanda added, "We were this close to filing for medical guardianship, you know? Just trying to help." Her words were a slap dressed as concern. And Matt didn't correct her. He didn't say a word. I reached for my own teacup, my favorite one with the blue rim and tiny pink roses, only to find it wasn't there. It was gone. And on the counter where I usually set out the mail was Amanda's designer purse. She had moved in. Without asking. Without permission. I walked back to my room, my feet heavier than usual, every step echoing louder in my mind. I needed to breathe. In the hallway, I paused at the framed photo of Matt when he was 7, holding his first fishing rod, grinning toothless, cheeks sunburned from the lake trip Walter had taken him on. That boy had once sobbed when I missed a school recital because I was sick. Now he couldn't even meet my eyes. Back in my room, I shut the door quietly. I ran my hands along the dresser. Someone had dusted. Not with care but quickly. Walter's cufflinks were no longer sitting atop the box. My hairbrush had been moved. The drawer where I kept my letters from him open. Violated. Later that day, I walked into the living room and saw Amanda had rearranged the furniture. My recliner, the one I always used, was pushed to the far corner. In its place sat a new armchair, stiff, modern, impersonal. She turned to me, chewing gum now. "Oh, by the way, we're trying out a new layout. The old setup was kind of dated. Hope you don't mind." I stared at the chair. "You moved my recliner?" She laughed. "You barely use it. And it's not good for your posture." I felt it then, a slow creeping chill down my spine. Not fear. Not anger. Something heavier. Displacement. I didn't belong. Not in my own house. I managed a weak smile. "You could have asked." Amanda's eyes flickered with something colder. "We're all just trying to adjust, Helen. After all, it's not like you were expected back so soon." Her tone dropped on that last word, expected. I went quiet. Matt walked in just then, holding a manila envelope. When he saw me, he hesitated. Amanda snatched it from him with a grin. "Don't worry about this, Helen. Just some boring paperwork. Nothing you'd be interested in." I opened my mouth, closed it again. My voice didn't feel like it belonged anymore. Dinner that evening was silent. Amanda reheated leftovers and plated them without asking. She gave me a smaller portion than everyone else. The silverware clinked loudly against the plates. I chewed slowly, listening to the sound of her phone buzzing every few minutes with text alerts. Matthew barely spoke. When he did, it was short sentences. Small nods. I whispered, "This stew needs more time." Amanda didn't respond. Later that night I went into the guest room, or what used to be. Boxes were half unpacked. A pile of Amanda's clothes sat on the bed. My old sewing machine was shoved into a corner beneath a bedsheet. On top of it sat a shoebox I hadn't seen in years. I opened it. Inside were some old letters. But they weren't mine. They were Walter's, the ones he had written to me during his deployments. I hadn't seen them in decades. I pulled one out, hands trembling. The paper smelled faintly of old ink and time. "My dearest Helen, if you're reading this, it means you found the box. And that means you're stronger than whatever storm brought you here." My throat tightened. I hadn't cried in weeks. But the tears came now, slow and hot. He had always known. He always knew where to place strength. Even when I didn't. I closed the box gently and held it to my chest. This wasn't a mistake. It was the beginning of something worse. The next morning I didn't go to the kitchen. I sat on the edge of my bed, still holding that box of letters from Walter. My hands traced over the creased paper like it was sacred scripture. Outside, the sky had turned a pale gray, that kind of stillness before a storm. I could smell the earth shifting, wet leaves curling under wind. Something was changing, and not in a way I could ignore anymore. I placed the box beneath the bed, tucked far back, and stood. My knees ached. They always did in weather like this. But the ache that morning wasn't just in my bones. It was in my gut. I walked quietly down the hall, avoiding the creaky plank near the bookshelf. Amanda hated noise in the morning. From the top of the stairs I heard them, low voices, muffled but not enough. Amanda's sharp and fast. Matt's slower, uncertain. "She's still got the title somewhere," Amanda was saying. "We have to find it before she gets any more clever ideas." Matt replied, "I don't feel right doing this. It's her house. She and Dad." Amanda cut him off. "And what? She's going to live forever? You want to wait until she falls again and breaks her neck before we prepare." I froze. The air felt suddenly too tight to breathe. My hand gripped the stair rail. They weren't just being careless. They were planning. They wanted my house. They wanted my silence. And they were acting like I was already gone. I stepped down the stairs slowly, deliberately, my footfalls softer than breath. Their voices stopped. I heard the shuffle of papers, a chair scraping back, hurried footsteps. When I turned the corner into the dining room, Amanda stood beside the table, smiling tightly. "Oh, Helen. Didn't hear you come down." Matt looked away. On the table lay a folder slightly ajar. Amanda moved quickly to close it, but not before I caught a glimpse of what was inside. A property transfer draft. With my address. My name. And theirs. "I was just organizing some documents," Amanda said, voice sickly sweet. "Don't worry, we'll handle everything. You just rest." I walked closer. "Is that my house?" Matt shifted uncomfortably. Amanda laughed. "Oh, Helen. Let's not make things dramatic. You're still here, aren't you?" "But for how long?" I asked softly. There was silence. The kind that lands hard. Amanda's smile dropped. "Let's be honest. You're not exactly in prime condition. You've had episodes. Confusions." The hospital said. "I had a fall. Not dementia." She shrugged. "Well, you know how fragile memory can be at your age. It's best we have everything prepared. For your sake." Gaslighting. Sharp and polished, wrapped in faux concern. Her specialty. Matt opened his mouth, then closed it. Not once did he look me in the eye. I turned and walked away without another word. My fingers were shaking. I went back to the study. The drawer was still locked. But I remembered something years ago. Walter had told me he'd placed a backup key behind the photo of our honeymoon. I hadn't thought about it in years. I lifted the frame. There it was. A small silver key taped to the back. I unlocked the drawer. Inside I found it. The original deed. The will. The trust account statements. Every legal paper that made this house mine, still in my name. Still untouched. And there was something else. A small folded note in Walter's handwriting. "If they ever make you feel like you don't belong here, remind them whose name built these walls." I pressed the paper to my lips. But I wasn't ready to fight, not yet. I needed more. I needed certainty. I needed to know if this was desperation or war. That evening Amanda made pasta. Burnt garlic filled the house. I sat in the corner chair, the one she had tried to exile me to, and watched her move like she already owned the kitchen. Her hips swayed like a conqueror. Her heels clicked with entitlement. Matt said little. Just picked at his plate, shoulders hunched. She laughed about something on her phone. "Mom," she said without even looking up, "you really should consider assisted living. It's safer, more practical, and honestly you'll make friends." Friends. Like I didn't already have memories. Like I didn't already have a life here. She wasn't suggesting. She was telling. And Matt, my son, the one I'd held during fevers and cheered for at baseball games, just kept eating quietly. Later after dinner, I walked out to the garden. The roses were overgrown now. Amanda never bothered with them. The air smelled like the coming rain, sharp and sweet. A single petal had fallen onto the bench. I sat down beside it, hearing Walter's voice in my head. "If you ever feel cornered, don't roar. Just remember who planted the soil." I ran my hand over the wood. They wanted to uproot me, but I was the soil. For the first time, I felt like a stranger in my own home. It was Amanda's idea to host the brunch. "Our neighbors are asking questions," she said, twisting her earrings in that smug way of hers. "It'll be good for appearances." Appearances. As if I were just a face in the window now, not the one who built this home room by room, memory by memory. I stayed silent. But I noticed the little things she'd already begun changing. The lace curtains in the front room had been replaced with something gray and stiff, like hotel fabric. The wooden cross I kept by the hallway door? Gone. My teacups had been pushed to the top shelf, replaced with those white, soulless mugs from some department store. The morning of the brunch I laid out my cardigan, the pale blue one with pearl buttons. It used to be my favorite, though it hung looser now around the shoulders. I pinned on the small gold brooch Walter had given me for our 25th anniversary, the one shaped like a rose to match the garden. The doorbell rang. I heard Amanda's chirping voice greeting the neighbors. As I stepped into the living room, I saw faces I hadn't seen in months. The Carsons from next door, Mildred from across the street, even Pastor Reynolds and his wife. Amanda was holding court, laughing, pouring mimosas. Matt hovered near the back wall, looking like he wanted to disappear. "Oh, Helen," Amanda said loudly, drawing every eye to me. "We saved you a seat over here, the cozy one in the corner. You know, the one with the extra cushion for your back." Laughter. Polite. Awkward. Not one person met my eyes. I sat slowly, my hands folded in my lap, trying to hide how they trembled. The scent of cinnamon rolls filled the room. Someone had brought a casserole. The air was too warm, too full. Amanda raised her glass, smiling wide. "I just want to thank everyone for coming," she said. "It's been a transition, helping Helen here adjust to her new chapter. But we're all doing our best to make things comfortable for her." New chapter? I opened my mouth to speak, but Amanda kept going. "And of course," she added, her voice dropping slightly for effect, "Matt and I have been in talks with a few professionals, just to make sure everything's arranged legally and safely, should Helen need more support." Support. Another word dressed up to mask theft. I looked at Matt. He didn't say a word. Pastor Reynolds cleared his throat. "That's considerate of you too. Very thoughtful." "Of course," Amanda beamed. "We just want to be ready. You know how fragile things can get after a hospital stay." My hand clenched around the fabric of my cardigan. Fragile? The same hands that once scrubbed Matt's skin raw when he came home covered in poison ivy? The same feet that walked 2 miles to the store because we couldn't afford gas that week? The same back that bent over that sewing machine for hours to fix his prom tux? Amanda placed a hand on my shoulder. "It's not like she needs all this space anymore. But we'll make sure she's settled comfortably. We're thinking somewhere with a nice little courtyard. Maybe near a community center." That's when it happened. I stood up. The room went still. Amanda's hand dropped. I looked at her, then at the faces in front of me. All of them pretending they didn't know, pretending this wasn't what it was. "I am not dead," I said quietly. "And I am not leaving my home." Amanda laughed. "Oh, Helen. Don't be so dramatic." Matt stepped forward slightly. "Mom, she didn't mean it like that." "She meant it exactly like that," I interrupted. Amanda's tone shifted. Lower, colder. "You're being emotional." It's been a hard few weeks. Maybe you should sit. I looked around. Every eye darted away. Every mouth stayed shut. Even Mildred, who once borrowed sugar from me every week for 10 years, wouldn't look at me. I sat back down. Not because I wanted to, but because my knees were shaking. Amanda smiled sweetly. Anyway, like I was saying. But I didn't hear the rest. The voices blurred. My heart was pounding. There it was. In public. Said plainly. No pretense. They were planning to erase me. And no one was going to stop them. No one. Except me. Later that night I stood in the kitchen, staring at the small cake Amanda had left out. Store-bought. Dry. I used to make cakes from scratch every Sunday. I opened the drawer. My old recipe cards were gone. Thrown away or boxed up. Like everything else. I opened the trash bin just to check. And there, beneath a coffee filter and some shredded mail, was my old address book. Soaked. Torn. I reached in, pulled it out. The ink ran like tears. What would you do if your child let someone humiliate you like this, in front of your neighbors? I pressed the wet pages to my chest. I had carried so many people, and now I was being carried out. By force. That night I found the will, but it wasn't mine anymore. I don't remember what woke me that night. Maybe it was the wind tapping gently against the window, or the ache in my lower back that always flared up in August. But something told me to go up to the attic. I hadn't been up there in years. Not since Walter passed. The pull-down stairs creaked like old bones as I climbed up, one slow step at a time. A faint smell of dust, cedar, and mothballs filled my nose, the scent of forgotten things. I shone my flashlight across the room. Boxes lined the walls, some labeled in my handwriting, others disturbed, half-opened. Then I saw it. A small wooden trunk pushed into the corner. The same trunk where I had kept Matthew's old things. Baby shoes, school awards, his graduation suit. I kneeled down, wincing as my knees met the cold wooden floor. I unlatched the rusted clasp and opened the lid. And there it was. The navy blue suit I had stitched by hand. The fabric was brittle now, worn from time and humidity, the collar yellowing. I lifted it gently and laid it across my lap. A memory tugged me backward. A memory I hadn't visited in years. We couldn't afford a new suit back then. Matthew was graduating valedictorian. A proud, shining moment. But Walter had been laid off, and we were months behind on the mortgage. So I did what mothers do. I sold Walter's old truck. The same truck he'd spent 5 years fixing with love and oil-stained fingers. He never complained. He just looked at me and said, "Our son walks into that gym like a king. Not a kid worried about bills." I stayed up nights sewing that suit. I remember pricking my finger over and over, the needle biting back when I grew tired. But I kept going. I stitched every hem with a prayer and love soaked into the thread. When I handed it to Matthew on the morning of his graduation, he hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. "I'm gonna make you proud, Mom," he whispered. "One day I'll buy you a mansion." I told him I didn't want a mansion. I just wanted that hug. I snapped back to the present, blinking away the heat in my eyes. The suit in my lap now looked like it had been forgotten for years, like everything else I gave. And then under a stack of old photo albums, I noticed an envelope. Not sealed. Just folded carefully. I pulled it out, the paper yellowed at the edges. Inside was the original house deed. The one with my name. My signature. Dated before Walter died. Not a photocopy. Not a digital file. The real thing. My breath caught. I thought Amanda had hidden it. That they'd destroyed it. But they missed this. I held it in trembling hands. The ink still clear, the notary stamp embossed in the corner. They'd been making plans behind my back. But they didn't know I had the one thing that mattered. The legal proof that this house, this life was still mine. And something else was tucked in the back of the envelope. A letter. Walter's handwriting. I knew it the second I saw it. "If you're reading this, Helen, it means someone's trying to take what's ours. Don't let them. Not without remembering who built these walls with you. They don't just belong to our son. They belong to the love that kept us warm when we had nothing." I pressed the paper to my chest. And for the first time in weeks I didn't feel powerless. Not yet strong enough to fight. But awake. Awake in a way grief had dulled for too long. I folded everything gently, held it close and made my way back down the creaky attic steps. The house was quiet, dark, except for the hallway light Amanda always left on. She said it helped her navigate like a normal person, since I apparently liked the house so dark and creepy. I walked past their room. I could hear her snoring faintly. I peeked into Matthew's old bedroom, now Amanda's walk-in closet. The carpet smelled like her perfume, expensive, suffocating. I went to the kitchen and made tea. Not the herbal kind Amanda kept in the fancy drawer. Just my usual Earl Grey. As it steeped, I stared at the steam swirling above the cup. My reflection trembled in the surface. I thought about the suit, about the truck, about that night in 1994 when I pawned my wedding ring to buy Matthew's textbooks. I had given everything, and now they were trying to erase me. But they didn't know you can't erase roots. Buried under those boxes, I found something they missed, the original deed. The next morning, I didn't say anything right away. I sat at the breakfast table, the original deed tucked quietly inside my cardigan pocket, just beneath the left button. The one Amanda always said was too old lady for modern wear. She was at the stove humming, spatula clinking against the pan. Scrambled eggs. Dry toast. Her version of a caring gesture. Matt sat across from me, scrolling his phone. Not once did he look up. I cleared my throat. I'd like to speak to my lawyer today. The room paused just for a second. Amanda didn't turn. Why? She asked too casually. I have some things I want to review, I said evenly. Some paperwork that's important. She flipped the eggs. No need to get worked up. We're handling everything now. I wasn't asking for help, I said softly. Now she turned. Amanda leaned against the counter, one eyebrow raised. Do you even remember where his office is? She asked. Because last time you tried to go, you forgot your own purse. My hand gripped the edge of the table. Matt muttered. Amanda. She ignored him. Helen, come on. It's too much stress. And with your blood pressure. I said I want to speak to my lawyer. She smiled. But it didn't reach her eyes. Well, I suppose you can. It's not like we're stopping you. She turned back to the pan a little too fast. Matt looked up then. Just briefly. Our eyes met for the first time in days. There was something there. Guilt maybe. But not enough. Not nearly enough. Later I went to the study. I kept the door open but let the silence build between us like fog. I sat in Walter's old chair. The one he used when he paid bills every Sunday evening, humming off-key and tapping his pen against the armrest. The wood still held his scent. Cedar oil and old leather. I laid the deed on the desk. The envelope was thick. More than just paper, it carried years. Promises. Roots. I stared at it for a long time. Then slowly, I opened the drawer where I kept my stationery. That's when I noticed it, my will folder. Empty. I flipped it open. Blank pages. No original. Not even a copy. Just a post-it note stuck inside. Misfiled Matt written in Amanda's handwriting. My lips pressed into a thin line. They weren't careless. They were cleaning house. And me? I was just debris. I pressed my fingers to my temple. The old ache returned. A throb that sat between my brows and stretched into my neck. Walter once told me, "Don't raise your voice, Helen. Raise your spine." So I stood up. Walked into the hallway. Amanda was in the living room, flipping through a Pottery Barn catalog. She didn't look up. I want to know where my will is. She flipped a page. Probably in the box labeled medical. Or maybe you just forgot where you left it. I never moved it. Now she looked up. Well, then maybe you dreamed you had one. I stared at her. Stop acting like you're being hunted, she added, tone sharpening. We've taken care of this house for years while you've drifted between falls and forgotten birthdays. Matt emerged from the kitchen, silent as ever. I turned to him. Do you know what she did? He looked uncomfortable. I assumed you'd talk to her first. You're my son. He didn't respond. Amanda stepped between us, arms folded. This is getting exhausting, Helen. You're forgetting things. You're creating tension. And if you keep pushing like this, we may have to involve the state. A beat of silence. And then like ice cracking, I laughed. Soft. Bitter. You think I don't know what that means? I asked. You're threatening to declare me unfit. Amanda didn't blink. I'm just saying we need to be practical. If you make things complicated, There are consequences. Matt said nothing. Not even a whisper. That evening I sat in the garden. The air was thick with summer heat. The roses had begun to droop. Not from neglect, but from something heavier. Like they sensed what I did. A storm was building. I pulled a small notepad from my lap. And I started to write slowly, carefully, each letter formed with thought. It wasn't my will. Not yet. But it was something more dangerous. A record. Every word Amanda had said. Every silence Matt had chosen. Every item that had disappeared. Every plan whispered in rooms they thought I couldn't hear. I was documenting them. Not to scream. Not to fight. But to remember. Because when you're old they assume you'll forget. But I remembered everything. I looked at my son's face, and for the first time I couldn't recognize him. I didn't cry that night. Not after Amanda's threats. Not after Matt's silence. Not even after realizing my own will had been tampered with. Instead, I did what Walter always told me to do when the world tried to push me down. I sat in the dark, made a cup of tea, and waited for my mind to quiet. The tea had gone cold by the time I reached for my old address book, the one Amanda had thrown away, now dried and wrinkled from where I'd rescued it out of the trash. I flipped through the water-stained pages slowly. So many names were crossed out. So many people gone. And then I saw it. Marielle. Nurse. Room 208. Written in small, shaky letters. No family name. Just Mary. I met Mary during the second week of my hospital stay. My hip had been repaired, but my hope was still shattered. She was the only one who sat beside me longer than her shift required. The only one who didn't just do her job, but actually saw me. One night she brought me a tiny peppermint and said, "My mom used to give me these whenever I had bad dreams. Maybe it'll help." She called me Miss Helen, even when I told her not to. Prayed with me when the pain was too strong for words. Talked about her kids like they were made of gold, though I later found out she was raising them alone. And once, just once, when I was slipping between pain and morphine, I'd whispered, "You're more family than my own." She hadn't answered, but she'd squeezed my hand. I dialed the number. 1 ring, 2, 3, then a soft voice. "Hello. Mary," I said almost too quietly. "This is Helen. From the hospital. Do you remember me?" A pause. Then, "Miss Helen? Of course I do. I was just thinking about you." I felt something pinch behind my eyes. I need your help," I whispered. She didn't ask why. She just said, "Where and when?" 2 days later, Mary met me at the cafe 2 blocks from my house, neutral territory. She arrived in scrubs, hair tied back, eyes tired but kind. "You look better than you did in the hospital," she smiled, setting down her purse. "I feel worse," I said honestly. Over lukewarm coffee and dry muffins, I told her everything. Not all at once, I couldn't. It came out in pieces like broken plates being swept off the floor. She didn't interrupt. Didn't flinch when I mentioned the threats, the missing documents, or the way Amanda's voice had become a weapon I lived with daily. At one point, Mary reached across the table and touched my hand. Her skin was warm. Steady. "Do you have any legal help?" she asked. "I had a lawyer once. Years ago. His name was Charles Bell. Retired now, I think." Mary's eyes lit up. "My sister's firm took over some of his clients. Elder law, trusts, that kind of thing." I looked at her. "Do you trust her?" I asked. "With my life," she said. 3 days later, I sat across from a sharp-eyed woman in a navy suit. Her name was Lauren, and her voice had the kind of firmness you only earn after fighting too many unfair cases. She looked through my documents, scanned the deed, made a few calls and said, "You're legally sound, but they're laying groundwork to get power of attorney through manipulation or false claims of incompetence." I gripped the armrest. "They want to put me away." She nodded. "But you're not going anywhere, not if we act now." That afternoon I signed new documents. A fresh will. A living trust. Durable power of attorney. Assigned not to Matthew but to Mary. Mary protested. "I didn't help you for this." But I looked at her and said, "You visited me. You listened. You gave when no one else did. That's what family's supposed to mean." Mary's eyes welled up, but she said nothing. Lauren added a final paper to the folder. "Once this is filed, the house won't belong to your son." It'll be held in a trust. You'll control it and decide who gets what. And if they find out? I asked. Lauren smiled, the corner of her mouth tight. They won't. Not until it's too late. That night I returned home. Amanda was in the living room watching reality TV, legs up on my coffee table. Matt was staring at his phone again. I walked past them both without a word, holding the sealed envelope containing my new will. I hid it in Walter's old toolbox in the basement, beneath a rusted wrench and a folded American flag. The next morning I served them both breakfast. Eggs, toast, fresh orange juice. I smiled, said good morning, poured the tea. Amanda looked up suspicious. You're chipper. I'm just grateful, I said. For what? For the clarity. She laughed. Clarity. Yes, I said, setting down the sugar bowl. Sometimes it takes losing everything to see who's willing to stand with you when you have nothing. Mary didn't just visit me in the hospital. She became my lifeline outside of it. I was heading down the hallway with a basket of folded laundry when I heard Amanda's voice. Low, sharp, from behind the half-closed bedroom door. I don't care if she's got good days. The next fall we will have legal grounds. The paperwork's ready. I just need one more doctor's note. I froze mid-step. Matt's voice followed, softer, worn. Are you sure about this? It's her house. I mean, maybe we're going too far. Amanda laughed. Too far? Matt, she's practically senile. Did you see her writing things down like some old spy? She can't even use email. Trust me, the sooner she's out, the easier things will be. I didn't move. Couldn't. Their words felt like stones against my spine. My heart beat slower, heavier. Not just betrayal. Calculation. Premeditated cruelty. And Matt, my son, my blood, didn't stop her. He hesitated. But he didn't stop her. I turned away quietly, walked back to my room and shut the door. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands. They weren't shaking. Not anymore. Later that day, Amanda was at her laptop tapping away. Matt was gone, likely to the store or to avoid the heat in the house. I brought her a cup of tea. Thanks, she said absent-mindedly, not looking up. I set it down gently. Thought you could use a break. She smirked. If I stopped now, this whole place would fall apart. She took a sip. You really should consider that assisted living brochure I left on your nightstand, she added. Nice courtyard. Group activities. You'd be around people your own speed. I nodded slowly. Is that where you'd send your mother? I asked. She paused only for a breath. If she started hiding things and causing stress? Absolutely. I walked away, back straight, spine lifted. Walter would have been proud. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and pulled out every piece of paperwork Lauren had mailed me. Trust documents. Property control. Banking access. I placed them into a new folder. One I'd keep with me at all times now. Then I took a small notebook and wrote one sentence across the front page. I am not their victim. I am their reminder. My eyes wandered to the fridge. Amanda had taped a grocery list. It included a brand of wine I never bought and a cut of meat I couldn't chew. I opened the freezer and saw boxes labeled Matthew and Amanda. Do not touch. I looked down at the floor tiles. Walter and I had laid them ourselves, one summer when we couldn't afford contractors. Each one set with patience, with love. How quickly they'd forgotten. The next morning I got dressed before sunrise. I wore my gray cardigan, the one with deep pockets. Inside one, the updated will. In the other, a letter I'd written by hand. Not legal but personal. For Matthew, if he ever found the courage to read it. Mary picked me up in her car. She honked once softly and I was already by the door. We drove to the lawyer's office together in silence. The city passed by in a blur of old trees, gas stations, families crossing streets I no longer recognized. When we arrived, Lauren met us with a soft smile. It's done, she said. Filed. Verified. The trust is live. I nodded. She added. You're protected now. Fully. Legally. Financially. If they try anything, courts won't even blink before siding with you. Mary touched my shoulder. You okay? I looked at her. I'm not scared anymore. That night, I came home to Amanda pacing in the kitchen. Where have you been? She snapped. You didn't say anything. You can't just disappear. I raised an eyebrow. I didn't know I had to ask permission. Matt stood nearby. His arms were folded. His jaw was tight. I placed my purse on the table. I was out. That's all you need to know. Amanda opened her mouth, then closed it. She could sense it, something had changed. But she didn't know what. Not yet. After dinner, I walked out to the porch and sat in Walter's old chair. The wind had picked up. The sky was streaked with soft orange, the kind of dusk you want to bottle and keep. I sipped a cup of tea, the ceramic warm in my hands. And I whispered something I hadn't said in months. Thank you, Walter, for leaving me stronger than they expected. I didn't cry, but I did smile. Would you forgive or walk away forever? Because sometimes, love is not what keeps you in a family. It's what tells you when to finally let go. I signed a new will that night, and they weren't in it. The house was too quiet. Even with Amanda's heels clicking down the hallway and Matt's muffled footsteps across the upstairs floor, the silence in the walls had changed. It wasn't fear anymore. It was planning. I spent the morning with my teacup in hand, sitting by the window pretending to admire the roses. They'd wilted a bit. Too much shade now that Amanda had moved the patio furniture. But they were still there. Still mine. I had a folder on my lap disguised as a cookbook. Inside, the new trust, the will, the medical directive, and one last signature page I hadn't yet handed over. Today was the day. By noon I was back at Lauren's office, seated across from her walnut desk, the final pen in hand. Mary sat beside me again, her eyes scanning the documents even though she said she didn't want them. I don't want your house, Helen, she'd said softly. I don't want anything. I turned to her. You gave me dignity when everyone else left me behind. That's more than anyone else ever has. Mary blinked slowly. Her voice cracked. You don't owe me. I know, I interrupted, smiling. But I want to. That's the difference. Lauren slid the last document forward. This transfers controlling interest of the trust, home and residual assets to Mary in the event of incapacitation or death. My hand didn't shake as I signed. The pen was cool against my fingers, weighty, solid. I pressed the nib to the page like I was sealing a promise. A final one. The air smelled faintly of old wood and lemon furniture polish. It reminded me of the church basement where I used to teach Sunday school, where little boys with scraped knees once called me Miss Helen with sticky fingers and crumpled memory verses. Back then, I never imagined the betrayal would come from my own child. Lauren sealed the folder, then looked at us both. It's done. That word done echoed like a church bell. We drove back home in silence. Mary didn't say much. She didn't need to. I could tell from her tight grip on the steering wheel that she was wrestling with the weight of what I'd just given her. I don't know how to thank you, she said finally. You don't have to, I replied. Just don't let them make me disappear. She nodded. I stepped out of the car slowly, the weight of my new freedom tucked tightly in my purse. Amanda was already in the kitchen when I returned. The scent of bleach and garlic filled the air. A strange combination, sharp and unsettling. Where were you? She asked flatly, not turning. Out, I said, placing my purse gently on the table. With who? An old friend. She turned to face me, a dish towel slung over her shoulder. You've been running around a lot lately. I suppose I have, I said calmly. It feels good. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Well, just let us know next time. We worry, you know. I smiled. No, you don't. A flicker of something, anger perhaps, flashed across her face, but she masked it quickly. Well, she said, walking past me. Dinner's in the oven. Don't be late. Her tone was wrong. Less confident than usual. I could sense it. She knew something was changing. She just didn't know what. Yet. That evening I set the table. Something Amanda hadn't let me do in weeks. She watched me from the doorway. Why are you setting 4 places? She asked. It's just us 3. I looked at her. I thought I'd invite someone who actually cared about me. She didn't respond. She just turned and walked out of the room, her footsteps harder than before. At dinner the tension was thick. Even the silverware clinked like accusation. I said nothing. I didn't need to anymore. Because now I held the cards. They thought they had silenced me. They thought I was weak. They thought the quiet meant surrender. But sometimes, silence is just the breath before a thunderclap. After they went to bed, I pulled out the folder and opened it under the soft lamp glow. I touched the paper, the deed, the will, the clause about incapacity and legal rights. I whispered to myself, they thought they'd broken me, but they just awakened me. They thought I was too frail to fight. They forgot who raised them. I started waking up before sunrise. Not because I couldn't sleep, but because I had work to do. The kind of work that doesn't leave fingerprints. While Amanda slept late and Matt left for errands, I quietly took inventory of the house. Room by room. Drawer by drawer. Cabinet by cabinet. Every document that mattered, I found it. Every password Amanda thought I didn't know, I changed it. And every photograph, every letter from Walter, every piece of my history she had tried to box away, I took it back. One memory at a time. The first thing I did was visit the bank. I told the branch manager I needed to update my beneficiaries. He smiled politely and didn't ask too many questions when I pulled out my new trust document. I named the trust as the sole beneficiary. Not Matthew. Not Amanda. And I locked the account. When I returned home, Amanda was sitting on the porch, filing her nails and sipping iced coffee. "Where'd you disappear to today?" she asked casually without looking up. "Just running some errands," I said. She grinned. "Well, let us know next time. You know how you get turned around." I smiled back. "Don't worry. I knew exactly where I was going." Next, I emailed Lauren from the public library. Amanda once told Matt I shouldn't mess with technology because she'll probably email the plumber instead of the lawyer. But I had learned more than they thought. I sent over the revised house documents and scheduled a secret evaluation for the property. Not to sell it, to transfer it into a fully protected trust. Untouchable, unbreakable, invisible to them. Lauren replied within the hour. "Final steps complete. All assets secure. You're covered, Helen. Let them make their move, we'll be ready." At home I played my part. I made dinners. I folded laundry. I offered tea. Amanda even complimented me once. "You've been really cooperative lately." "It's nice." I nodded. Sometimes peace comes when you stop fighting the wrong war. She didn't understand what I meant. That was the best part. Mary stopped by once during the week. She brought homemade banana bread and sat with me in the garden for nearly an hour. We didn't speak about the documents. We just talked about life. Her kids. Her dreams. My garden. "I've never had a rose survive in my yard," she said, touching the bloom gently. "You can take a cutting from this one," I said, pointing to the blush pink blossom Walter had named Hope. "I wouldn't feel right," she whispered. But I shook my head. That's the thing about roses. They grow stronger when shared. Amanda grew suspicious by Thursday. She asked Matt to check the mailbox. Twice. She asked me directly, "You've been getting a lot of letters lately. Anything we should know?" I replied, "Nothing that concerns you." Her face stiffened. "You know," she said, circling me like a vulture, "we've talked about updating your living situation. Smaller space, fewer responsibilities. It's just more manageable." "Manageable for who?" "For all of us," she smiled thinly. "I see." I walked away. Slowly. Calmly. That night I served them both dinner. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and honeyed carrots. Just the way Matt liked them when he was a boy. Amanda ate with one hand, scrolling through her phone with the other. "Where's this from?" she asked. "Old recipe," I said. "Family recipe." Matt nodded. "It's really good, Mom." She shot him a look. I just smiled and cleared the plates. I felt their eyes on my back as I walked to the sink, but they couldn't see what I was really doing. They couldn't see the trap I had already set. After they went to bed, I pulled out the realtor card Lauren had mailed me. Not to sell the house, but to appraise it. Step by quiet step, I was removing every stone from under their feet. The storm was coming, and they were dining in its eye. It started like any other day. Amanda was in the kitchen, wearing her silk robe, humming to herself as she flipped through mail that didn't belong to her. Matt sat on the couch half asleep, the morning news buzzing behind him like white noise. I stood at the sink, wiping down a plate that didn't need cleaning, just to keep my hands steady. Because today was the day. The knock came at 9:42 a.m. 3 short raps. Firm. Professional. Amanda answered, annoyed. Can I help you? A tall woman stood at the door, blazer, clipboard, neutral smile. Hi, I'm Hannah Marks. I'm here for the scheduled property evaluation. Amanda blinked. Excuse me. I'm with Fairstone Realty. We were asked to conduct a full valuation for the trust records. Amanda turned to me, eyes narrowing. What is this? I dried my hands slowly. I asked them to come. For what? She hissed. You're selling the house? No, I said, calm as ever. I've already transferred it. Her eyes widened. Transferred? To who? To someone who actually showed up when I needed family. Matt stood now. What's going on? I turned to him. I've put the house, the bank accounts, and everything else into an irrevocable trust, outside of your reach. The new beneficiary is Mary. Amanda's jaw dropped. The nurse? You gave our house to some nurse. Our house. I echoed, stepping forward. Since when has it been yours, Amanda? She spun to Matt. Do something. He opened his mouth, but no words came. I looked at Hannah, who had stepped inside with a gentle professionalism only trained strangers carry. I just need access to each room for measurements, she said. Amanda blocked her path. You are not coming in here with a clipboard and a smug attitude to appraise my home. Hannah blinked. Legally, this is no longer your home. Amanda turned back to me, fury bubbling through her voice. You conned us. No, I said, my voice sharper now. You abandoned me in a hospital bed. You stole from me, gaslit me, and planned to throw me into a facility like I was luggage. This isn't revenge. This is protection. She looked to Matt again. Tell her this isn't right. You're her son. Matt looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in weeks. And then he looked down. That was all the answer I needed. Amanda stormed off, her robe fluttering behind her like a defeated banner. Matt followed slowly. Not in anger. In shame. By afternoon the appraisal was done. Mary arrived just after. She looked nervous. I didn't want this, she whispered. I know, I said. But you earned it anyway. She handed me a small wrapped box. Just something small. I didn't know what else to do. I opened it slowly, a ceramic mug. Handmade. Glazed in pale blue. Across the front. You were never alone. We sat together in the garden. The sun was warm but not heavy. The roses swayed gently in the breeze. I poured us both tea and we sipped slowly, the way people do when they're no longer rushing to be seen. If your family sold your love for comfort, would you still call them family? I looked down at my hands, weathered, freckled, firm, and thought, family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who brings you back to yourself. Their screams echoed down the hallway, but my silence was louder. I waited until Sunday. Amanda loved Sundays. She treated them like her personal red carpet. Fresh curls, too much perfume, and that white blouse she thought made her look estate-ready, as she once joked. So I picked that day on purpose. The invitation was simple. Tea at Helen's. 4 p.m. Bring your favorite memory. I sent it to everyone on the block. The Carsons, the Reynolds, even Mrs. Doherty, who rarely left her porch. I printed it on floral stationery and hand-delivered each one myself. Amanda never asked why. She assumed it was about her. By 4:15 the living room was full. The smell of lemon cake drifted in from the kitchen. Fresh flowers stood in a vase, white daisies, not Amanda's usual sterile roses. The neighbors smiled, chatting lightly over tea and biscuits. Amanda stepped out in heels, eyes scanning the crowd. She leaned toward Matt, whispering something behind her hand. Then she looked at me and smiled, too wide, too confident. Lovely turnout, Helen, she said. Are we celebrating something? Yes, I replied. Clarity. She raised an eyebrow. I cleared my throat. Thank you all for coming. I began. I know it's unusual to call for a gathering like this, but I felt it was time to tell the truth. The room quieted. I walked to the mantel where Walter's photo still stood, the one Amanda had once tried to move to the garage, because it didn't match the decor. I turned to face them all. For months, I said, I've lived in silence while being erased from the very home I built. My son and his wife took advantage of my illness. They began shifting documents behind my back. They planned to institutionalize me and take full control of this house and my life. Gasps echoed from the back. I continued, my voice steady. But what they didn't count on was that I remember who I am. I pulled the envelope from the drawer beside the sofa, the one Amanda thought I hadn't noticed her rifling through last week. Inside were copies of the new deed, trust transfer, and power of attorney. I handed them to Mr. Reynolds, the retired notary. He read them silently, then looked at Amanda. "This is airtight," he said. "Legally, she owns everything, and none of it includes you." Amanda's face drained of color. "What is this?" she barked. "Some kind of performance?" "It's called truth," I said softly. "And it's overdue." Matt looked like he wanted to disappear into the floorboards. Mrs. Carson stepped forward, frowning. "You said she was confused, Amanda. That she didn't even remember your name some days." Amanda's mouth opened, then closed. I stared at her. "Tell them, Amanda. Tell them how you packed up my bedroom while I was still in the hospital. How you hid my will. How you planned to sell this house behind my back." Silence. "I didn't. I mean." I cut her off. "You laughed when I cried over my missing letters. You said I was imagining things. You told the neighbors I was fading." A pause. "But here I stand, with my memory, my mind, and my dignity." Mary stepped out from the hallway then, holding a small tray of tea. I hadn't asked her to, she just knew. As she poured, a few of the neighbors clapped. Tentative. Soft. Amanda turned to Matt, desperate. "Say something. She's manipulating everyone." But Matt just stared at the floor. "She's your mother, Matt." He finally looked up. "She was," he said. "You just never treated her like one." That was the final crack. Amanda stepped back, face twisted in something I couldn't recognize, shame perhaps, or the unfamiliar weight of consequences. She turned on her heel and walked out. No one stopped her. Not even Matt. After the crowd thinned, Mary and I sat by the window. The last rays of sun slanted across the floor. The air smelled faintly of daisies and justice. Mary looked at me. "You okay?" I nodded. "I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I just told the truth." "You didn't need to raise your voice," she said. "You raised your dignity." They walked out, faces pale, and no one followed them. It's been 2 weeks since Amanda left. She didn't slam the door. She didn't even say goodbye. She just packed her expensive handbags, tossed her skincare into a suitcase, and drove off with her pride bleeding behind her. Matt left the next day. No drama. No apology. Just a folded note left on the hall table. I didn't know how to stop her. "I'm sorry, Matt." I didn't reply, because by then I had already learned that sorry doesn't sew wounds. It only describes them. Now the house is quiet but not empty. It breathes again. The lace curtains are back. Walter's photo has been returned to the center of the mantel. The hallway smells of lavender and wood polish, not bleach. And the roses? They're blooming stronger than they have in years. Mary comes by every weekend, sometimes with her youngest daughter, who calls me Miss Helen, and insists on helping in the garden. We planted a new rose bush together last week. I asked her what we should name it. She grinned. "Family." The neighbors wave again when I walk outside. They stop to chat, bring casseroles, and ask about the nurse who saved everything. I tell them, she didn't save the house. She saved the woman inside it. They smile politely, not quite understanding. But Mary does. She always does. There's a chair I sit in now, on the porch just by the edge of the step, where Walter used to peel apples in the fall. The wood is smooth under my hand, warmed by the sun, familiar like an old song. I bring my tea out here every evening. 1 sugar. No milk. The way I like it. And I listen. Not for footsteps or fights behind doors, or whispers in dark rooms. But for peace. And it's here. Not loud. Not grand. Just steady. This morning I went to the closet and pulled out something I hadn't touched in years. A small blue velvet box. Inside was my wedding ring. I had removed it when Walter passed, thinking my story was over. But today, I slid it back on. Not because I was holding on to the past, but because I had earned the right to remember it. With pride. Mary helped me frame one of Walter's letters, the one he wrote in 1972, when we were still building this home. It now hangs in the hallway. The last line reads, "This house will hold our love, even when we can't. And now it does. Not just love, but strength, boundaries, truth. I sometimes wonder if Matt will ever come back. If he'll stand at the door one day, hat in hand, eyes full of shame, and I'll let him in. Not because he deserves it, but because forgiveness isn't about them. It's about setting yourself free. Still, I'll make him sit on the porch first. Let the weight of the quiet teach him what he forgot. Tell me, is it better to lose family or to lose yourself? Tonight I sip my tea slowly. It's warm, steady, mine. Mary's daughter left a drawing on the table, crayon flowers and the word home scrawled in pink. And for the first time in years I feel like the word fits. The tea was warm. And for the first time in years so was I.